That's right, yeah.
Okay, the monitor's not on, or is there a button for the monitor?
There might be a button.
Different control for the monitor?
It's recording it.
We're meeting people today.
This is the City Council Finance Subcommittee meeting of December 11th. Did you have a chance to see Councilor's minutes of...
I actually created those minutes.
Oh, those are your minutes, so you
Yes.
obviously saw them. I didn't read them. I thought they were kind of thorough. I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes from November 26th.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
None?
Aye. Mayor's communication. Melissa, you want to say anything for the mayor here? Okay, public speak. Maybe Councilor McCoy would like to say anything.
Yeah.
Okay, new business. Let's take up the 645-164 for open space. I know we got to get to Melissa on the finance part, and we got to get to Jessica on the overall project, but I wanted to, John's got a little bit of a conflict with another meeting, so I know Councilor Rist was curious, what he asked me to ask, because he couldn't make it, was kind of what your department plans for maintenance. In other words, I know at CPA you said you wouldn't need extra personnel, but he kind of wanted a little more expanded, what you thought maintenance would include in, if you know, I mean, or how much you can enlighten us on that.
No, we'll maintain it as needed. If it's something that the public decides that it wants to be shoveled off and made a walkway or snow blowed, then
That makes a difference.
then we'll do that as well. I know we talked about is being concerned with any type of substance that we put down for ice in that area, that it has to be environmentally safe for that area. So.
And I know you said there'd be some obviously trash. I guess
Trash
you
removal,
would
yeah.
be responsible for the trash receptacles.
Yeah.
No, and the sidewalks, DPW picks those up. Right?
Our guys come out in the winter time.
Oh, they
So, yeah. We come down and like George, and this year will be Dan, they come down, they snow blow, they help around the
So
city.
you're
So,
pitching
yeah.
in with them.
Yeah.
Because this is owned by Parks, and once they work out some interdepartmental agreement, it's going to be Parks that maintains it.
And Jessica, just for you, and then we maybe can ask John again, do we know what the actual surface is going to be?
No.
I read in the proposal, it just gives a figure, but it doesn't, because I've heard people, some say it's going to be Trex, some people say it's some kind of wood that lasts, so we don't really...
We don't know yet. We had a preliminary meeting with the consultant team this week to just talk to them about how the public process might work in the final design stages. The designs that were submitted for the grant were 25% design.
Right.
So we know that there's things that need to be tweaked, and we've already heard from city engineer and fire and police about some of the concerns they had about the 25%. So our intent is to hold a meeting sometime in mid-January to allow the public to comment on any concerns that they may have about the design at the 25% phase that was submitted for the grant. We're having some back and forth about the materials. We had initially talked about a wood called IPE wood, which
IPE?
IPE. It's a Brazilian walnut. It is rot resistant, insect resistant, graffiti resistant. It's pretty much like cement. It sinks when it hits water. However, there's been some questions raised about its harvesting practices and the sustainability of its harvesting practices. So we're looking for other alternatives, whether it's a wood product or whether it's some sort of composite recycled plastic that looks like wood. So these have not been. These are questions that we still need to hash out, but we have a budget amount, and so we know that we need to work within that framework of what we requested. But initially, that quote was set on IPE wood, which is a more expensive wood than typical woods that you would purchase. So the estimate is a little bit higher, so I think we have some flexibility about the material that we could use for the boardwalk. I'm actually sort of leaning towards some sort of composite recycled plastic that has the look and feel of wood, but has a higher longevity to it.
Right. So in any case, hopefully it would not be a yearly maintenance item.
Hopefully
We're
not.
hoping to
My-
take something that goes out of the way.
Right, my biggest concern is graffiti, and so there are graffiti-resistant paints. The new bike rack that's right at the corner of, on Union Street, right by the bike path there, that bike rack has used graffiti-resistant,
neon
the
from
neon
the-
one, that has graffiti-resistant paint on it. So there is a material that could be used. Again, there's a lot of questions that still need to be hashed out. Yeah.
Councilor Cobb, do you have anything, especially for John, if you have anything on, as I said,
Well, I'll label it this way. I have a couple financial questions here. One of the things I saw, I talked to the city planner briefly about the wood product that was proposed, because the application has a list of directions we need to take before we actually go to that exotic wood
Right.
anyways, and that's why that needs to be pursued. I looked at it in terms of maintenance, and I don't want to fool anybody. There's going to be a maintenance cost. It's going to be slight, because you're not only going to have trash pickup and policing. There are 3 docks that are floating docks, and I think those docks have to be removed from the water during the winter time. So there's going to be a little more than just the taking care of the lot. So you look at that, is that you go into this with an expectation that in future budgets there may be a slight, and I'm only talking, we'll say 4 or 5 hours a week, because there'll be the water, the boat area too, that'll be encompassed eventually, where he'll need like 4 hours a week extra just to maintain that park. And you have to go into this, if this is considered a priority, with an understanding that regardless of how much he tries to absorb that operational cost, eventually it's going to catch up with him. I don't see that the maintenance cost as hitting us very heavy until so many years out, depending on the product we use for the ultimate wood product. My concern was graffiti too, and I was going to say, well, there's graffiti-proof paint out there. It's graffiti-resistant covering. It's a clear covering that you put over it that helps you wash certain types of graffiti off. They actually have graffiti that doesn't wash off, but I don't think. I'm hoping they're not that sophisticated in this community. We do have a community of a lot of artists going now, but. I was actually glad to see the pavers that are being used because of this, because they're easy to maintain if one pops up because of the ground movement in the area. And I know there's a contingency budget of 10% somewhere. That's not a lot in a project of this, in my mind, in a project of this sort, given it's right on the waterfront. But I also noticed that the park benches were $1,200 a piece. And I went at that and I said, that's a beautiful park bench. I don't know what we're ordering, but so there's some wiggle room within the estimate.
I think so, yeah.
That might help as we work at that with some of the amenities that are required. I did notice coming down here where our Christmas tree lights are, and the type of tree that's there, and the new plantings that we're going to get, I don't know what they're going to be. And is that going to make it look like we're going to have Christmas balls instead of Christmas trees the next time we try to decorate that area? Because that's one of the, you see, those
Those are Bradford pears.
Okay.
Those are Bradford pears. We are going to have to take down those trees, but we're
Yeah, I understand that. That's in there.
replacing with 12 new trees. So again, we can pick
Alter or
trees
whatever, it's not-
that are amenable to Christmas lights.
Okay, you know what I'm saying?
But I think the Conservation Commission would want to make sure that they're native trees, because it is right on the
Yes.
pond,
Well,
and
that's
that's
part of it.
important too. And that they're disease resistant and salt resistant. So we got to find a right tree that can handle the road salt in winter.
Yep.
Handle that kind of urban living, but also be as native being near the pond. That's going to be a commission's request, I guarantee it. So,
Was it flowering pear? Do you know what that one is?
the Bradford pear. Bradford.
Yeah, Bradford, I think.
they actually put pears on? Can you get pears off?
No, it's just an ornamental.
It's an ornamental. They're like little
I thought maybe it's
berries almost.
I thought there was some dangerous.
It has a white flower in the spring.
Yeah.
Quite odorific, actually.
Yeah, they're pretty.
But they're,
Weak wooded and ice storms, though.
they're very thin, not a high growing tree. Anyways, there'll be experts that'll decide that. I will give you my one serious comment. So the idea is don't fool anybody. We know there's going to be a slight increase in your maintenance cost. And the idea, if people consider this a priority, want to go for this, they should actually support you in the next budget request to provide for that. If you like the project, you need to understand you need to maintain it. That's the simple formula there.
And I know it came up with John earlier that if they go to some down the road, we go to some type of water craft, that would obviously, especially if it was some type of fee-based, obviously somebody's got to maintain the, that type of a position. That would,
Yeah.
that would be, but can't expect somebody to come every day from Parks to handle the watercraft.
Exactly.
But I will say this, I have a certain degree of apprehension in this project because I'm not the kind of person that doesn't like to know what I'm buying before I actually spend money. And there's a lot of things still left out that we're not so sure of. So it just sends some red flags up for me. And, but, I can kind of understand where certain things are going in the direction we're taking in certain areas. So we'll see, but I'm very apprehensive about not knowing what I'm really buying here and the rush to get this done or to get a vote out there by December 31st.
That's the grant requirement. With accepting the grant funds, we are required to have a vote by City Council by the end of the calendar year.
So I'm going to give you a hard conversation. My understanding, and you can correct me, my understanding was that the application had a June or July.
We submitted in July.
Right. And we could have actually voted prior to getting the announcement of the grant. And we waited till after. We're rushing into this now.
We submitted the CPA application in July. So it took the CPA committee from July to November to make their decision. We can't have the motion without the CPA allocation as part of that. So we submitted the CPA application immediately after submitting the grant application. So we did...
So my follow-up's going to be the CPA committee.
Yeah, but I'll give you my follow-up now. In fairness to the CPA committee, that we, in coordination with the planner's office, created new rules and regulations for financing for financial, in other words, where projects had to be in by August 1st, I believe, and this one wasn't submitted actually till after August 1st, to the CPA itself. So therefore, it could not be, by the rules, the new bylaws or rules or regulations of the CPA, it could not be actually move forward for appropriation until November.
Although it was my understanding that the committee could have made an exemption for projects related to grants, and I think that was part of the discussion, but I don't think the committee voted on that. So.
No, they never did.
So
Again, I would have thought that would have been a little, where the planning department is the first group up, and then they're the first group looking for an exemption would kind of, if I was out there coming in the future, I'd say, why do I have to wait? So I think that was at least in my mind. But it was never formally put up to have an earlier vote than the November vote.
So I'll give you my take, and it's not an uncommon process.
And I will say that what I read up to it, and I did see the memo, and I agree 100% with what Jessica's saying now that the state wants the funding by the end of the year. The grant itself read that the funding had to be in place prior to or shortly thereafter. So, then they came up kind of like with they defined that shortly thereafter as by the end of the year, where I think originally they had said they were going to hopefully come back with these grants sometime around October.
Right.
They kind of went late into the year.
They went later and said, even though we went later, you're still expected to have this vote by the end of the calendar year.
Yeah.
So
that's how. If I could just suspend this discussion for 2 minutes.
I want to see if I got anything more for him, because I haven't seen anything about the project. All I've seen is the picture I saw in the paper. That's really all I've seen. And so from that artist rendition, and the so to say the budget document on here, which is the estimate, I'm making inferences on what's going on. Like the 12 park benches, what are called trees, the park benches, the pavers, but my concern is actually the silt protection. It doesn't seem like a lot of money, considering we're right on the waterfront. The silt protection that they're going to have for this project, because you're stripping all that soil back. Has there been any soil testing done, or is it going to be soil testing done? The reason I'm saying that is where that is like a dam. If we strip off too much of the topsoil, are we exposing soil that can easily erode and collapse and have a greater problem? So protecting that that bank on the road there, given that there's going to be traffic flowing?
We're going through a Conservation Commission permit. We have to get a notice of intent to the Conservation Commission in order to do this. So that process will be happening late winter, early spring, and they're going to have very strict requirements for erosion control. So we're going to need to meet that as part of the project.
You're going to tell me everything I want to hear, and I was hoping I could actually see a plan where...
Well, we're still at 25% design, so I encourage you to come in January and give your input to the consultant team who's been hired to do this so that they can incorporate it in the designs when they get to the 15 to 75%. That's why we're holding a public meeting earlier rather than later. We want the input now from when any concerns that folks might have with what's been submitted. I mean, they're giving us a cost estimate, their best guess of a cost estimate, and preliminary design. We need to help them design the final design, and they're going to need our input. So I really do hope that the public comes and voices any concern that they might have with how it's being currently designed, and so we can take that into account and make sure the design is right. I want this to succeed, so you know. It's got to work. It's got to be right.
My questions for Mr. Mace were actually very, very little, because your role is after the fact. And so it would be knowing the type of materials that he has to maintain, or the type of materials that you may have to stock or have readily available in the event of offensive graffiti and those kind of things.
Right.
And I can guess at that, but I don't have a firm figure of that 25%.
Well, and quite honestly, we're not going to know exact costs until the bids come back in. So we've got a consultant team who builds boardwalks. They've done quite a few of them. They have numbers that have come back from past bids, so they have good ideas of how things are going to cost. But until you put a project out to bid, you don't really know what its cost is. You're estimating on your best knowledge of what something will cost.
But in my world, what we call this is called a PBE, as in pre-bid estimate.
Right.
And it's generally it's based on so to say knowledge of past experience on what the extreme cost would be.
Right.
And you always come in under that, and so that you have a job fully funded and don't have to necessarily use contingencies unless there's something wacky out there that you run into.
That's our hope.
And that's what I'm hoping this is in that line, that the bids are actually going to come in lower than this.
Yep.
Okay, and so that we have that contingency in the event something goes wrong.
Yep.
Councilman McCoy, do you have anything? John has to, I don't know if you came in a little late. John has to leave at 6:30, so if you had any questions for John, okay.
It's pretty straightforward for the materials and the mechanics of the park. It's pretty straightforward for them.
Yeah, and we have we have all the playgrounds, we have everything, so, you know, and the cemetery guys are right there. One of the things is, you know, our department's also cemeteries as well, so, I mean, currently Brookside goes down and empties the trash, you know, those guys, and they also mow that area, even though it's technically not our area to mow, the cemetery guys go down there and take care of that and help keep that area up to date too, so.
For lack of a better term, you might have to develop your own pond-safe practices on how you actually keep that area clear, because, you know, the thought in my mind was that depending upon the product that is put there, you know, you could just use a leaf blower to clean it all out, but then everything goes into the pond.
Yeah.
You don't want that dust and silt.
Yeah, we can.
So you'll be developing your own set of pond-safe practices.
That's probably
That'll be in the order of conditions, I'm pretty sure.
I know you replaced some of the roads up in Brookside. Is that, I haven't gone by the one by the pond recently. Is that going to be done?
That'll be done in phase 2, yeah.
In phase 2. So
Even though it's technically not really part of the cemetery road.
That's why I didn't know where it is.
Because our gates
You kind of
are inside of that.
I see, so.
But, yeah.
That was another question. So.
I mean, because when this gets done, I mean, that's going to be
right, a lot of people
parking and using that area, so we're hoping to have, you know, phase 2 of the cemetery road done in a couple of years. 2 years out is what we're hoping for. So.
If we could suspend the pond project just for a minute without objection, do you have any questions for John on the baseball hub before he leaves? Justin, if we get to that, I don't know if you had any particular questions for John on that.
Is there a plan out there for that proposal?
Yeah, we have design costs, we have a design, we have...
so between now and the city council meeting, is there a way I could view that through the...
We had it last week.
I was going to say, I have...
That was, it was just kind of a sketch. Let me...
And there was, again, like a little bit, although I won't say really, more so
Otherwise, I don't-
more so than the pond.
Again,
That one changed a couple times, so we had like 2 or 3 different ones.
Yeah.
So
We kept cutting costs and
Yeah.
I want to say this
That
is, all right,
Is this the final iteration, or is this?
this
Sure,
is,
I got the camera pointed.
I can't confirm or deny it.
That's a
no, that was early on.
Okay.
And then this was in October 11th, and this was after Cannon, Bill Cannon came back with the initial estimates, and that's when the project was split.
Yeah, but it's the same one.
Right. That's in there, so.
And I got,
And then this is, that's October, because this one was September, so that was the newest. And then this was the CPA, not the CPA, the Park and Rec Commission's vote that they, when CPA only wanted to fund either the baseball or the soccer, that they felt that the baseball had been on the burner the longest, and so they wanted to complete the baseball first and come back hopefully next year for the
let me quickly take a
soccer.
look at that.
And just to give a quick add-on, one of the things we talked about at CPA was what type of commitment the
Right.
youth Little League and softball have done. So far, they have spent just over $90,000 on this hub project out of their own finances. They're looking at another $55,000 with the irrigation and the 4 dugouts that'll be added on with that. So that'll bring up to about $145 just for this area alone. They also spend annually $8,000 a year for lawn care. They do $1,500 they do towards our Park to Work Scholarship Program, which is between us, Little League, and the Duchesne Fund. We pay for a position to work maintenance in the park that obviously doesn't come out of the city budget. We underwrite that cost, and then they do just generally they spend about $1,000 a year, just general repairs, fencing, and backstops, and things like that. So they use it quite a bit, and they invest in that area quite a bit as well.
Which I actually find odd that we have so much private financial support for our park. That's just my editorial. That has a future parking area here. Hopefully it's going to be lined, so people know where to park.
So the parking lot is lined.
This one that says future.
I don't know why it says future. There's a
I was
parking
gonna say
lot.
there's a lot.
There's already a parking lot there that's lined.
Let's probably
Okay.
along this.
Maybe they're going to dress that up a little bit then, that's all.
Yeah, I don't know what
Is that the old plans from the initial
That might be-
design?
Might
from
be
the
there.
original-
They
the
may have submitted
original?
that with their additional,
Yeah, that
Because Bill did the original design too, didn't he?
Yeah.
yes, he did.
That's the original parking lot?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're just going to dress it up a little bit, that's all.
City dress up, does it?
No.
No, I think it's in very good
It's in
shape.
great shape.
Yeah.
I don't know
As I
what.
said, I think this might have come from the
original.
original, and when they submitted their first application,
Yeah,
I think they included that to show what it,
That might have
it
been
still was
before,
going to have the general.
before Cannon did the full design work on it.
Because he did the full design for both the baseball, updating the baseball and doing the
Yeah.
whole soccer.
Answers very quickly. Yeah, they're not doing anything. According to this, they're not doing anything to the lot. Okay,
Good?
I'm okay. It's a lot of money. You want to-
Well, I mean, we can discuss it after John leaves. I mean, after
I don't have any technical
after we go
questions
back.
for
I
you.
just wanted to have John.
Yep, thank you, I appreciate that. I'm off to my next meeting.
That's right. Thank you, John.
Thank
Drop
you.
those documents off to my office tomorrow.
I will have those
Thank you.
signed, ready to go.
Thank you.
See you in the morning.
Perfect. That's fine.
Have a good night.
Thank you too.
Okay, back to the boardwalk. I guess, I don't know if you have more questions for Jessica at this time about the design, or obviously, I think I'd like Melissa to explain a little the borrowing mechanism. I think I understand why we have to do it, but at least to put it on the record why we're funding the whole project. I believe that's the way we have to do it, and hopefully we're not.
It's my understanding that the grant application requires that we have funds available to start paying for the project, because the grant is a reimbursable project, which is typical of most grants, but this application required that we show our availability of funds. And the easiest way to do that without actually setting aside an appropriation is to authorize a borrowing. And then, the grant application will come in and we won't need the borrowing.
I'm sure you have some questions, Justin.
Yes. So, it's all on me. I actually, again, my take is this: if this is something that people consider a priority, want to vote for it, I don't want them to come with full transparency with an understanding that this is a reimbursement grant, that we may actually, there's certain things that make me feel uncomfortable, and that's that because it's a reimbursement grant, we're going into a new governor, and we just had a decrease in income taxes because of the way the project's going. And so will the political will shift, and will we actually get that 400,000? So the idea, I'm more comfortable with actually the intent of, rather than plan our project based on we're going to get a grant that reimburse us, that with the intent that we may end up having to pay this in full. I'm more comfortable with that, because then I know it's going to get done if our partner decides for some reason that they don't have the available funds and don't want to fund this or whatever, decide to bail out, which they allowed to do under this contract. And it's always been my dig with reimbursements that there are as many good ones as there are not so good ones. And a lot of it depends on how competitive the money is, and a lot of it depends on the political will at the time to actually continue to fund this. I haven't heard anything to support or counter that.
This program's been around for a really long time through multiple governor administrations. So, and it's been a program that the city has used multiple times for several parks projects.
But I've seen what we've had in block grant money change, what we've had in
block grant
monies
money
change.
Yeah.
So I'm not expecting that, but I want people to be clear that they may end up, that it's not our expectation that we're going to have to fund the full project, that we will get the full reimbursement of that $400,000, and that's our expectation. But when you decide to vote on this, that we may end up not getting the full 400, there may be a little bit less, or we end up having to fund this thing in full. I'm okay with that. If I know that going forward, I'm actually okay with that. It's not my preference, but I'm okay with that.
I just want to say that there's a difference between the fact that our award year to year for CDBG is decreasing because we've always gotten our full award and we've been awarded this 400.
Yeah.
So it's not like do we have an award letter contract from them?
Yes, I do.
So we've never experienced, I don't think, in the past, if we've been awarded funds, it not coming in. The timing of it can be slow sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think, but there's a difference between like CDBG, there's an application every year, and 1 year you get a ton of money and the next year you get nothing, and the next year you get less than you got 2 years before, but we've always received all the money that we were awarded. So I don't think they would change the award. You're right. I mean, first time for everything. But we've been awarded, and generally we receive everything that has been awarded. If we applied again next year, the award may not be there,
right,
and we would be turned down.
The first question on this reimbursement concerns where does the money go from the reimbursement? Where does that 400K go? We're expending funds coming out of, because we're borrowing money, we're going to be expending a certain amount of funds.
Well, typically, this is not the first reimbursement grant we have. Almost all of are that way. And so typically, the grant award is received, a grant account is created, we spend money from the grant, we resubmit from the reimbursement, the account goes back to zero.
Okay, so the reason I'm saying that is there a chance that because of the length of this project, that we might have to pay some type of interest?
I don't think so. The only reason I would ever award money based on reimbursement, borrow money for a reimbursement grant is if we were in a large deficit at fiscal year end that we could not cover because it would hit free cash. And we've had that happen in years past where at the end of the year a grant was overdrawn at the end of the year and we were waiting for reimbursement from the state and it didn't come in before the end of the year, and that reduces free cash. But once it comes in, then it's available in the next year's free cash. So you never would want... Valerie is really good at sending out nice little memos saying, all of these accounts you need to submit for your reimbursement. Where are they? Where's your reimbursement? Chapter 90 is run the same way for streets and roads. We pay for that up front. We ask for the money back from the state. We wait. And so she's really good about monitoring the amount of stuff that we sort of upfront pay for and then get state reimbursement for, and sort of remind people, please don't wait for it to be a big number because your number plus their number plus my number, we can't sustain that. And that becomes my cash flow problem. Yeah.
Challenge.
Yeah, and so this particular grant is recognizing that. It, however, is true of almost every grant we receive.
Because what I read is it offered in the reimbursement, this is why I was glad you said account, is that as a reimbursement, if the money's coming from one spot, the reimbursement allows it to go back to CPA if the money's coming from CPA. If the money's coming from the general fund, it allows it to go in the general fund, which is the natural course that it generally allows it to go, or in another designated fund by vote, if we so choose. But if you're going to set up an account, everything moves in and out of that account, and it's kind of neutral, and money just isn't going to any dedicated source, or coming from any dedicated
Right,
source.
we only assign the grant, and the grant has a cap on it. We know how much we've been awarded, how much is available for the total project, and the funds are spent, so they would never allow a PO to be open for greater than the amount of the grant award, and typically, we would ask for reimbursement, not at the end of the project, but in cycles as we pay for it.
And this is 2 fiscal years, so we can only expend out for design between now and June 30th. And there's a certain amount of money that we can, and we can't ask for any other reimbursement, only for design. After July 1, then we can begin construction. So we can't even start construction on this project until July 30th.
I actually saw that, I saw the plan to end in November. I find that ambitious, but then it's possible because it's basically a fancy landscaping job. But there's going to be some traffic.
Ouch.
I apologize. But there's going to be some traffic interruptions and traffic flow.
There is,
And
yeah.
from the comments I'm getting on the West Street project, where people are not getting the notice they need, we might need to step up our game up a little bit here.
It's right downtown, so you're gonna have to get construction vehicles in there somehow. So we've already preliminary had this.
There'll be a
discussion.
staging area they're gonna have to have, they're gonna have to take somewhere. The project actually calls for taking down some traffic lights and putting them on hold and putting them back out later on. It actually might give us an opportunity to change out the bulbs if our superintendent of highways is paying attention.
Is there something wrong with the bulb?
They're LEDs, change the little LEDs while it's down on the ground. But anyways, there's, that said, back to the financing. If we have to pay, so you're not expecting that we're going to be paying interest on a loan, but you're not going to rule that out that we might have to. That would be actually a smart statement. I'm okay with that. I just want to make sure that people know things up front.
I would be very surprised if we actually borrowed money from this.
Okay, but we're
But of
giving you
course,
the
if
authority
we
to do
authorize
so.
it, it's always a possibility.
Yeah, but we're giving you the authority to do so in order to cover. Okay, if there's a surplus. We get our 400,000 back, and we get our 400,000 reimbursement because we have the POs to cover that. We still have planned for 645,000. If there's any extra money, like in this case, the extra money would be in CPA funds. Would we just return that to the CPA?
That's generally what happens, yes.
Okay. Just asking. And so we have and this is actually not, you can say this isn't a fair question, I'll accept that as an answer too.
Oh, great.
Okay, the opposite of having a surplus is not having enough. Where would that money come from?
Well,
And you can say it's not a fair question.
no, it's a fair question, and this happens on projects where there are cost overruns. So in order to, you have a contract, you have a bid, we accept a bid, the bid should fall within the 600,000.
Yeah.
We would not proceed with a project that was over the amount we allocated without finding another source of funding. If we got halfway through the project and something unanticipated came along and we needed an extra 15,000, we would not sign the change orders until we came back to the council to find an additional source of funding, whether that was additional CPA funding, general fund town match, or we were able to apply for more money with the Park and Rec's grant, which I'm not sure if that's a possibility, but sometimes it is. So we would, you have a bid and a contract, this is how much it's going to cost us to do this project. They come in, they start, everything's great. They go, oh, we want more money. We go, oh, we don't have any. Stop.
Right.
And then you have to come to some kind of, either it's something that we need to fund because it was it's bigger than our contingency, and obviously we don't want to have done half a project, and we would have to find additional funding before we proceeded.
Well, I think that says it in here also that if there's something happens, they can actually stop the project until you actually get our act. So if we had to actually provide additional funding, the sources would be, of course, free cash stabilization.
Right.
Could we go after additional CPA money too?
You could try.
Okay. So,
Or we
I'm just
could
trying to be clear.
We could try for more grant money, we could try for more CPA money, we could ask for free cash or stabilization, but all of those have to be requested and voted.
The philosophy is actually simple. It's one of where I'm looking at this in terms of if this is considered a priority, people want to vote on this. I want them to understand that that you may be voting additional money, or you may be voting for borrowing. You may get your reimbursement on time and everything will work out wonderfully. We may be under budget, so that there's pros and cons to this, and to make sure that people understand that the concept is to have a successful project if you consider a priority, not just you're voting for this and create all kinds of drama after the fact if something doesn't pan out. That we're doing our best to plan this out. We're going to move forward with this. That's my soapbox for a while. You can take it from here.
Just getting
No,
back,
another counselor has soapboxes like Van Hagen.
just getting back, Jessica, a minute.
Sure.
On, you said that up until July 1st, we could only do design.
Yep.
But if, say, we'll just throw out a figure, design is $75,000, that you would already be able to draw from the grant?
Yes.
So the grant would pay
and
that?
reimburse that, correct.
And reimburse that. So it's not like we have to just
No, we
bank
don't need
that
that.
figure and then get it all in one lump.
Right,
So,
we can reimburse for design and permitting and it has to be done by this fiscal year. We don't really we have to have substantial completion on all of that work done before the end of the fiscal
Do
year.
you feel confident that you will?
I think so. I mean, we set out a good timeline with the consultant on Monday. We sat down and sort of worked our timeline backward. When does things have to hit? When would we be submitting to Conservation Commission? So we have a preliminary timeline set up, but they cannot begin work until all of the state contracts are executed. So the contract actually needs to get signed by the park commissioners, which is one of the items John is doing tonight. That was why I said give me the paperwork tomorrow morning. It has to be executed by the mayor, and there's some other paperwork that needs to be done. But once those are in place, then we can go into an official contract with the design team.
Do we have the design team? Is it?
Yes, we're going to go with Berkshire Design. They're the
They're the ones that did the preliminary? Or no?
They did the 25% design and the construction estimate. So the mayor agreed to continue to work with them on this project.
Councilman McCoy, you have any questions?
No, well, so the 25%, is that typical amount of design for this stations project? Okay.
Yeah, that's, unless the community is willing to put up the money to do 100% design, you know, a lot of firms are willing to do some pro bono work, or, you know, be willing to be paid after the fact, to put at least some proposal into the state. The MassWorks grant that we submitted for the first round was, I think, at about 75% design when we submitted it. So it's pretty typical to not submit full contract with some grants, not all grants.
This actually speaks to, permitting was one of my questions, actually. I understood the permit process. I'm just, given that I'm a little apprehensive, because I hate rushing into these things with deadlines, and it makes me apprehensive because we might end up not meeting those deadlines. The state has indicated in the contract that for certain reasonable efforts, they will extend the deadline. So like if there's a federal permit, because it's a Clean
Right.
Water Act or
If
something.
we get stuck with the Army Corps of Engineer permit, that could take 6 to 9 months and delay things. But we're trying to avoid permit like Army Corps in the way that the boardwalk is going to be designed.
Do we actually own the land, or do we have?
That's part of the motion that council will be making, is that the land is being conveyed to Parks and Rec.
But the city owns it now.
The city owns it now, right.
City owns it
Yeah.
now.
It's just gonna go under Parks and Rec.
Yep, it's just going, right now, the pond is under the oversight of the mayor's office. This small section is going to Parks and Rec. The mayor's office will continue to still, and the National Pond Committee will continue to advise the mayor's office on the rest of the pond. So Parks and Rec's not going to be dealing with dredging. They're not going to be dealing with other aspects of the pond. They're really taking over just this section, and they're also responsible for the water lane in West Beach.
Now, I understand where it starts, it comes down, and we're going to do a potential sculpture there, if an artist willing. And then we come down to the boardwalk, whatever material that ends up being. Then we come down to the paver section. There'll be a couple docks in there. And as we come around the corner, what I saw was another boardwalk area coming around the corner.
Comes around the corner.
And where does it end? At the ramp? That deck?
Right now, it ends almost where basically the fence ends, right near the building.
But it doesn't go around. It doesn't go around. I think he's saying is it the handicap fishing?
Oh,
Right,
there.
it doesn't go right
Yeah,
down
I was
that
going the other way.
So I was wondering which side you were talking
Yeah.
about.
Okay, no,
I know I'm in the building,
it
I
won't
get
go
that.
that far down, no.
It'll only go kind of to where it starts to turn.
Where it starts to turn into the cemetery road.
Because that was built on handicap
And again,
accessibility.
we're at 25% design, so there are still some issues that need to be worked out, especially in that general area, I feel. You
On
know,
which end? The cemetery side, you
on
mean?
the cemetery side.
Is there any questions by anybody else here in the public? No? Okay.
I'm here for the national.
No, I know you're here for the committee.
I'm just here
I didn't know if you had anything you...
Well, I'd only seen the preliminary when they brought it in, but so it's gonna have entrances on both.
Again, we're at 25%
So we don't
design,
even know
so
yet.
we can change things. If there is a certain amount of the public that don't like certain aspects of the design as being presented at this point, that can be amended. As long as we're staying within our budget and the consultant is very clear that this is the amount of money we have, so this is what we need to be designing around.
Well, I still, my pet project ought to be, we've talked about it a couple times, is I'd really like to see us do a brick patio where the sign is now in the corner to raise money for the upkeep of the boardwalk and to make that, like sell bricks, because I've seen, when I lived in Central Mass, I've seen at least 4 projects be funded through selling bricks to the community, like at Milford Whitensville Hospital, at a couple vocational schools in Central Mass, and a couple other, parks. And I said, this would be the perfect opportunity to sell the bricks, to let people have a part of history, and to raise money at the same time for the upkeep of the boardwalk. Because we're thinking, oh my God, we have to do all this stuff on the pond, and now we've got this to think about in the future, and I thought, why not kill two birds with one stone?
Is that something, Jessica, like at this meeting they're gonna have in January, that could be brought up?
That could be brought up,
I mean, that's what
absolutely.
you're saying,
But
at
we
this
would-
meeting in January.
But we would need to figure out the timing, because I think it's a great idea, but I don't want
To that to be.
that to
Right,
delay.
right. No, but I don't think it would,
something.
yeah.
So we would just need to figure out timing and.
Maybe I could actually
Well,
do my
it's actually
homework
quite-
between.
you could buy the stones blank, or the space for the stones, and put a stone in there. And for fundraising, you just buy sculptured stones
And swap it out.
and then swap
That's
them.
not a bad idea. I can look into it between now and January's meeting and maybe have the answers ahead of time.
Depends on the kind of papers that the architect is willing to go for. And the
Right,
reasons they want to go.
right, but it's just something, it's something that would help in the future.
Because what you may end up having is, because of where it is and the potential for unstable soil, they may actually have sleepers and pavers, bigger ones. So you may not have a full circle or you may be only allowed so many.
Yeah, but I'm talking closer to the street. I'm talking like right where the sign is and all the benches and there's stuff. That's not like right where we're gonna be. Just do it along the sidewalk. Is what we were talking about in the National Plan Committee.
So I will end on this. I have a lot of concerns, I have a lot of apprehension. I also have a lot of time will tell. And I just want to make sure that people understand what they're voting on and hope for the best, plan for the worst. And this could end up a great project if it's their priority. That's it.
That's it? We're all done?
The information was pretty comprehensive, so I have a fairly good idea what's going on. I have an artist rendition to work off of.
Okay. Councilor McCoy, you're all set?
Yep.
Then I'll make the following motion that the Finance Subcommittee requests the following funding. The amount requested would be $645,164 from CPA Open Space, CPA Undesignated Fund, and for $100,000 in borrowing. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye. They will recommend the executive
I already set the public hearing, so
Thank
it'll
you.
be at the next council meeting.
See you at the next council meeting next Wednesday.
Well, Mr. Mason will be there.
Yes, you will.
15, right?
He intends to,
6:15, yeah.
he tends to be there.
Yep. If there are questions concerning it, there might be questions at the hearing. There might not be any questions, the way, you never know with counselors. With the need for someone from highway or the superintendent.
I don't think they would. I think the questions to me are going to be either for Jessica on the project in its general scope, or
Like we did
possibly
here.
the pond committee, or certainly the way it's going to be funded, the borrowing funding mechanism. I think, Melissa explained it very well tonight, and I think,
I am going to bring up, because you mentioned this, that the fire and police have actually, I've already expressed orally some concerns over the design. Or
Email.
input into the design.
It was email. And they weren't even really, they were just wanting to make sure that they had at least access for their vehicles to get to the pond in case of emergency, that there was still some way for them to
Throughout the project.
right, to rescue if they need to. If somebody's in the pond and they need to get in there, make sure that there's at least a place for them to access.
Okay.
I think the public hearing is going to be important to people, councilors and the public who guys are talking about the financing of their projects, because they're very easy to get into the design
Get into
and as we mature, it's good.
That's a good point.
Pulling the people back is step one.
That this is-
There'll be plenty of time to be involved.
Well, I think that's good where Jessica has said that there's going to be already, you don't have a specific date or anything.
We're toying around with
Tentative.
January
But a
15th,
tentative.
but it's just very tentative right now.
But there is going to be mid-January. There will be a meeting
Mid-January
where
is our
people
hope,
can
and-
express a...
And we were going to have a follow-up too, so we're going to have at least 2. We may end up having more if it seems like we might need to do that, but we're having at a minimum 2 public meetings for people to comment on the design. Specifics of the design as it progresses. I think it's really important with this project that there's a lot of people who have a lot of ideas of how it needs to function, and I think it's important that we have those forums, so let people express that.
So I'll leave you with this other crazy philosophy that I'm a strong believer in high-end, low-maintenance products up front, why we're actually expending the capital funds rather than cheap out, save
I'm
money,
absolutely with you,
and then find out a
100%.
high-end operational
Yep.
cost later on.
Yep. I'm with you.
Boardwalk was
$1,200 benches.
Yeah, I don't know about that
I gotta
either.
see that.
I'd rather
You
put
wanna see what
the
they
money
look
into the material of the boardwalk itself to have some longevity to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on, do you feel, I did set a public hearing, but certainly I'd continue it on the athletic field unless you feel you have enough.
Yeah, there's this,
Just,
let's just vote on it, and I'm okay with it. You can do what you want with it.
okay. No, I mean, I because of the CPA, I mean, I've,
With the CPA, yeah, you got to see these kind of rough plans. That's one of the things I was asking for, is so you have an understanding of what they're doing.
Right, how it
We may want to ask our department head to actually kind of explain what is going on, so people can see a drift of how this project is going to flow.
Yeah, I know John said he was going to be at that one too, so.
Other than that, it's.
Well, then I guess I'll make a motion that we recommend to the full council the appropriation of $237,732 from CPA funding for construction of athletic fields, the baseball, 2 athletic fields and Nonotuck Park.
I'll second, and comment on the motion. Can you make sure we have a balance?
CPA balance?
Yep, so people understand how much money is left.
I sure will. All in favor? Do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. 2-0. Okay, so that takes care of 2 items.
There's one here I have no debate on.
That's the $250,000 from
If you would like to jump to that,
Sure.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of that request to the full city
I'll
council.
second that. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, I'll set a public hearing for that one. It'll have to be in the next meeting.
Yeah.
Before we go on to any of the other items, I guess that's and we may have to get in touch with Councilor Rist on this, but the next meeting of the full council is the 18th, which would put the next meeting of the Finance Committee on the
I don't think so.
on the 25th. So I don't foresee us meeting on the 25th. So I was thinking we'd move it to Christmas Eve on the 25th. So I guess
With
between
the
now,
size of my family, I welcome the discretion of the chair. There's convenient times and dates. That's one day I could not attend.
That's funny.
so I guess what I would like to do is between now and the finance report, get together with yourself and Councilor Rist and just determine a date if we can find one in there. Either earlier in the week, but it only really would be Monday, or I don't know what your availability is between some people between Christmas and New Year's have a lot of stuff going on too, or and again I don't know what Councilor Rist's schedule is either, in fairness. So I mean I could email.
Monday's fine.
Okay, so you would be willing to go Monday the
23rd. Right?
23rd. Okay, let me run that one by Councilor Rist, and if he's good with it, we'll have a meeting on that. So getting back to the agenda, and if not, we'll set up a different time. I just wanted to make sure we wanted to have a meeting. As I was saying earlier, the only one of the other appropriations at this time, well, in fairness of the ones from DPW, I don't want to set too many public hearings, but I would like to set a public hearing on the waste, the replacement of the waste oil furnace at the highway garage at the next meeting, but it would be for the first meeting in January, because that's as soon as we could have it anyway.
To be honest with you, this actually makes economic sense, because we collect waste oil. Why not use it to generate money?
Right.
And so that way he's not cutting into his own light energy budget. He can actually use the waste oil for free.
Right. And so I'm going to set a public hearing for the first meeting in January on that.
Okay.
And I'm also going to set up public hearing. I don't know, I was remiss in not asking the fire chief when he needs this turnout gear for his call firefighters.
If it was critical, I know he would have emailed me before he even actually submitted the request to me. And I heard nothing from him.
Okay. Melissa, is there some other, that would leave us the damaged doors, which Joe said he is going to try to fix anyway, and then knowing that free cash hopefully will replace them. I think he's going to try to patch it together for now. He said that wasn't. And then I'll talk to him again on the Oliver Street landfill, and certainly we could put that up at the second meeting in January, I think.
Yeah, I just know that needs to be done soon, so they're gonna need to start on that as soon as they can.
Right. I think he said they couldn't start for a little while.
Well, right, because it's winter, but...
All right, I'll try to get that one set up for the second meeting in January with the other items.
And this is at the discretion of the chair, given it's a January meeting. This is a reimbursement, so there may be invoices to actually nail down how much.
You mean reimbursement on the...
11-2. Because he's already going to expend money to make the repair, he's asking to have his budget restored. I'm okay with that. But if it's reimbursement...
No, he didn't say he was actually going to repair. He said he could patch the doors together. In other words, it wasn't crucial. In other words, he could do...
repair them until he did this.
Right. In other words, he could patch them together to get by until he gets to know what
The
that means.
wind.
Yeah, he said they're like kind of...
So in the same vein of winter repairs,
Yep.
you might as well have them open. Is what I hear. They get frost on the inside.
But again, we can do all those. As I said, if we do, we'll set up the... I know we won't be there for the stabilization or the waste oil, but we could set the other three for the second meeting in January, and they'll be all done.
So you're expecting in January, the first meeting in January to have...
First meeting in January, we'll do the waste, hopefully do, we have a subcommittee meeting, assuming the subcommittee approves the wastewater plant, we would have that one on the first meeting in January. We'd also have to have the public hearing on stabilization, even though I'll set it because we haven't set the public hearing on that. But that's been approved. And then at that first subcommittee meeting, we'll take up the other three items, or the other, well, the turnout gear, the landfill, and the damaged doors.
Okay.
I think that's it. Oh, and we also have to deal with tax classification tonight, so when we're done with this, we have
Last item.
last item.
That's a housekeeping issue.
This is a housekeeping, we just have to go back.
We know what our preliminary certification is in.
Right. Unless,
Our actual certification came in for final values. We got a preliminary notice, and then since then we've gotten a final notice of values to have been certified. We of course do not have the tax rate because that isn't set until after your vote.
Yep.
But we, he is under the assumption that things go the way we anticipate. Mark is right now just trying to make sure that the computer system balances with what we've sent to DOR. And there's been, some small...
and Mark said he would be at the full city
Would
council.
the chair like those documents in hand so that we don't have...
Yeah, I definitely, I could get a hold of Mark.
Especially you could say, so he has something physical.
I'll talk to Mark, because he said he would definitely be there on next Wednesday and see what he can provide for documents. You think he's got them, or most of them? Or?
Well, see, what you would need is, because the issue was the preliminary certification, we have it, we can show
The
it.
preliminary, the permanent.
Finals, we have it, we can show it to everybody, and so we're ready for this vote.
I can email you those after
Okay,
this meeting,
yeah.
because I got
I don't need them, you can have them.
Okay.
You can email it to me, that's fine. Unless you want to take up changing the tax classification.
I have no interest in doing stuff.
Thank you.
So I don't know, do we need a subcommittee vote again to just approve?
Yes, we do,
I guess
according to Barbara, we do. I'll make the motion to recommend that we approve the tax classification as previously voted.
With all the extras,
With all the, yeah,
no granting
as
open
previously
space, no granting occupied.
I would recommend that for approval. I'll write it up nice, but we recommend approval of that too.
I have the last...
Right, I got it from the...
Yeah, you don't have to read it because it's
It's the same, but we'll do the same motion, so I'll second it. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye,
Aye.
very good.
Okay, and then we're gonna look at that on council.
Any other business, Councilor Cobb, that you'd like to take up that's on the agenda?
None, I was hoping this was gonna be my last finance meeting, but
I was gonna say, it's probably your last one,
I
right?
thought
I'll
Christmas
suffer some money
Eve,
more for council.
you could have had you play Santa at the end of the meeting.
Do you know if there's gonna be any additional supplemental interdepartmental request coming in on the agenda for next week?
I believe there is.
Okay.
Are you looking for something in
Because it might
particular?
be something you might wanna note, add to our meeting on the 23rd.
Yeah, I'll see whatever's added. I mean, I always
If there isn't,
I always put them on the agenda, whether we get to them.
I don't even know. I can wait till I get the agenda. It's his meeting.
Yeah, well, I mean, sometimes DPW tells me about stuff and it takes a while to come through the process to get to you, so I know sometimes they don't tell me and I'm like, oh, look at it.
There it is.
Oh, that. So sometimes I know about stuff beforehand, sometimes I don't.
Okay,
Okay,
that said, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it. Undebatable. All in favor, aye. Thank you all for coming. Thanks, Melissa.
Okay, let's see if I can shut this off. Can
That was
see
better
the
late
light?
than never, I mean, you know, I got
Want a
here.
little itty bitty camera?